CNBC is learning that the Trump administration now currently considering 11 individuals for the role as Fed chair. Those include 3 new names. And joining us right now to talk about those 3 new names and more, Larry Lindsay, by the way, Rick Reeder, David Zevros, is former Cleveland Fed President Loretta Mester. She's an adjunct professor at finance at UPenn's Wharton School, a CNBC contributor. I want to also talk to you, of course, about inflation, the jobs market, BLS data, and so much more. But curious about just what your take is on this almost reality show that's now emerging. It went from just the Kevins, the 2 of them, to basically 11 different people. What do you make of how this is, this sort of drama is playing itself out?
Well, I think it's a good idea to vet this very carefully. So the fact that there's a longer list is probably not a bad thing. I mean, who knows why different people get on the list? Could be that they're getting suggestions from a lot of people and they think it's worthwhile to start looking at some of those names. So I think there's nothing wrong with looking at a group of names, and I think it's probably wise to do that.
Is there anybody on that list that you think is the one that you'd pick?
Well, it's not my decision. Look, I've worked closely with a number of them, and others I haven't. I think the key attributes are, I mean, it's a difficult job. You have to have someone who has a point of view, but also listens to their colleagues. I know when I was at the FOMC, you come in with a viewpoint, and then if you listen, you might have changed your viewpoint, maybe not at that meeting, but as you assess things, as you get a new idea. So you need someone who's open to listening and thinking about things that are differently than perhaps the idea that you came into the room with. And
right.
I think a lot of those people on the list will do that. And I think that's a very good thing.
Right.
But you also have to be a very good communicator. And so that's the other attribute that I think is very important for a chairman of the Federal Reserve or chairperson of the Federal Reserve. You need to have someone who's going to listen, right, who's going to collect information, who's going to listen to market data, who's going to understand modeling as being an important attribute that you need to really understand. But you also have to be open to listening to the things that maybe not fit your model.
What do you make of the idea of just independence and that these folks are supposed to be completely apolitical? The truth is that none of these people have been completely apolitical. They're, of course, nominated by a president. Someone even, I'll do the other side of the aisle. Janet Yellen went from being the Fed chair to the Treasury secretary. So how do you think the public should think about this issue of independence?
So independence is a key principle upon which we end up with better outcomes for the public. I can't emphasize that more. This is not just something that is a nice to have. This is really essential that when you go into that room, whether you're a governor, whether you're a Fed president as a policymaker, whether you're the chair, you cannot be looking at short-run political considerations. You have to be focusing on the longer run and the dual mandate goals that Congress has given you. And that's going to be very important, no matter what your background is. Everyone brings their background to the job, but you have to leave all that behind and really focus in on what's going to be the best policy that will achieve maximum employment and price stability. And there's studies, there's experience that shows that if you do that, you end up with more stable inflation, lower inflation, and you don't give up anything in terms of having more volatile output. So this is an empirical fact that you end up with better outcomes for the public.
Okay, so here's a different one for you. If the Bureau of Labor Statistics suspends the monthly distribution of data on jobs every month, how big a problem is that for the Fed or not? How big a problem is that for business leaders and the rest of the country and the world?
Well, it would not be the choice I'd make. I mean, yes, it is true that some of the volatility in those data suggests that there can be improvements in the data collection and the surveying, et cetera. But I would do that. I would take that tact. It's like, don't throw data away. Let's improve some of the techniques that are brought to the data. And, you know, whether that can be done immediately or not. I doubt it, but I think that's something that I would basically be working on is how do you improve the data quality?
Right.
And then people using the data have to be really cognizant of the fact that these data do get routinely revised. And maybe you take that into account when you're setting policy. Whenever you're setting policy, there's uncertainty in the data, there's uncertainty in your models, there's uncertainty about where the economy is going. But that's part of what policymaking is to be able to incorporate that into your thoughts about what's appropriate for monetary policy.
Loretta, we got to run, and I got literally 20 seconds, so it's really almost a yes-no. Come this fall, would you raise, or rather, would you lower interest rates?
More data to come. We don't know yet. The recent inflation report was consistent with inflation, not really showing through a lot of the tariff effects, some of the tariff effects. But I think the more troubling aspect of that report was the underlying core services excluding housing. The narrative has been that that should be falling, and that went up.